The pistol is already pressed into his stomach when he realizes the night has gone silent. No birds. No distant traffic. Only wind moving through Dutch pine trees and the soft crunch of boots sinking into wet soil. The German officer smells damp earth and perfume. A moment ago, he was laughing. A harmless walk. A pretty girl. No danger. Now the safety clicks off. She is close enough that he can see freckles under the moonlight. Her hand does not shake. Behind him, another shadow steps forward. Steel slides from a coat sleeve. A second weapon. No shouting. No warnings. He reaches for his holster too late. The first shot is muffled by the forest. The body collapses into leaves and mud. Within minutes, it happens again. And again. Small groups. Isolated officers. Drawn away from roads and barracks by smiles and soft voices. By dawn, several German officers will not report for duty. Their units will assume desertion, or transfer, or paperwork errors. They will not imagine teenage girls carried out the killings. And they will never understand how the war reached them here. Quietly, deliberately, face to face. The Netherlands, 1941. German occupation has settled into daily routine. Swastika flags hang from town halls. Curfews are enforced. Radios are confiscated. Jewish families are being registered, then removed. The country has not fallen in a dramatic last stand. It has been smothered, slowly, administratively, efficiently. Resistance exists, but it is fragile. The occupiers control roads, rail lines, and food supplies. Arrests happen quietly at night. Informants are everywhere. Most acts of resistance are limited to leaflets, forged documents, or stolen ration cards. Armed operations are rare and dangerous. In the forests and villages of North Holland, one resistance network makes a calculated decision. They will not challenge German power head-on. They will exploit blind spots. Teenage girls. Freddie Oversteegen is 14 years old when she joins the Dutch resistance. Her sister, Truus Oversteegen, is 16. They come from a working-class left-wing family that has already sheltered Jewish fugitives. When resistance recruiters approach their mother, she does not hesitate. She gives permission. The girls are not trained soldiers. They do not wear uniforms. They look exactly like what German officers expect to see in occupied territory. Young, unthreatening, curious. To the occupiers, they are invisible. The resistance teaches them how to move weapons beneath coats, how to recognize rank insignia, how to identify men traveling without escorts, how to walk naturally beside someone who believes he is in control. By 1943, a third figure joins them, Hannie Schaft. Older, red-haired, university-educated, already wanted by the Gestapo. Together, they form a cell used for one specific task. Luring German officers away from safe zones. No firefights. No sabotage explosions. Just silence, short distances, and bullets fired at arm's length. The Germans never imagine what is happening. Their intelligence profiles do not include girls as assassins. That assumption becomes fatal, and it sets the stage for one night when multiple officers disappear, one by one, without alarms, witnesses, or survivors. By late 1943, the German occupation is under strain. Allied bombing raids are intensifying. Rail sabotage is increasing. Dutch resistance cells are becoming more coordinated and more hunted. The Sicherheitsdienst and Gestapo respond with mass arrests and summary executions. Any resistance member caught with a weapon faces immediate death. This pressure changes how operations are planned. Large actions draw attention. Attention brings retaliation. So the resistance shifts toward precision. Small teams. Limited exposure. Targets chosen carefully. German officers stationed in the Western Netherlands often live with a false sense of security. Away from the Eastern Front. Away from partisan warfare. Their routines become predictable. Evening drinks. Walks after dinner. Casual encounters with local civilians meant to demonstrate authority or charm. This is where the Oversteegen sisters and Hannie Schaft are deployed. Their instructions are simple and unforgiving. Do not improvise. Do not linger. Never operate alone. Each target must be isolated from witnesses, then removed cleanly. Bodies are to be left where discovery will be delayed. Wooded paths, drainage ditches, unused clearings. Weapons are basic. Small caliber pistols, easily concealed. Sometimes knives, if silence is critical. Ammunition is limited. Every shot must count. On the night in question, conditions are ideal. Low cloud cover blocks moonlight. A damp cold settles over the countryside, muting sound. German patrols are reduced due to a false sense of calm after several quiet days. Multiple officers are off duty at the same time, spread across nearby towns. The cell does not think in terms of one mission. They think in windows of opportunity. One officer is approached near a cafe. Another near a road leading toward forest cover. Another after he separates from a group to escort a girl home. Each encounter appears spontaneous. Each is planned hours in advance. There is no central firefight. No single location. The danger lies in repetition. Every approach risks exposure. Every conversation risks a wrong word, a misjudged rank, a hidden escort, a drunk officer reaching suddenly for his weapon. The margin for error shrinks with every successful kill. By the third encounter, adrenaline is no longer sharp. It is heavy. Hands are cold. Muscles tighten. They cannot afford hesitation, but they also cannot rush. German units are trained to notice patterns, even if they do not yet understand them. Somewhere before dawn, a threshold is crossed. Too many officers have failed to return, and the next approach will require absolute control, because if one man survives long enough to shout, the forest will fill with boots, dogs, and gunfire within minutes. That is the moment they step into. The final approach begins just after midnight. The road curves into forest, narrow and uneven, bordered by wet grass and shallow ditches. The officer walks slightly ahead now, confident, unguarded. His greatcoat is unbuttoned. His pistol sits low on his belt, secured but not ready. He does not hear the second set of footsteps behind him. This is the danger zone. At this distance, everything is mechanical. The resistance does not think in emotions. They think in angles. Reach. Time. The pistol is drawn inside the coat. The safety is already off. The muzzle is pressed forward. Not raised, not dramatic. Just firm contact. Close enough that recoil will not throw the shot off target. The officer senses something wrong half a second too late. His shoulders tense. His right hand starts to move. The trigger is pulled. The sound is flat, swallowed by trees and damp air. The body collapses sideways, boots scraping once before stopping. No scream. No second shot needed. The weapon is already back under the coat. They move immediately. No checking pockets. No confirmation beyond stillness. The forest floor is soft. Footprints disappear quickly in mud and needles. Within seconds, the path is empty again. This pattern repeats across multiple locations. Not a single sweep. Not a raid. A sequence. Each encounter is separate, but the strain compounds. Fatigue sets in. Cold fingers make grip discipline harder. Ammunition is counted after every shot. One misfire would be catastrophic. At one point, a target hesitates. He stops walking, turns slightly. For a fraction of a second, eye contact is made. There is no panic in the response. The distance is closed instead of widened. The muzzle is raised an inch. The shot is delivered upward, into the chest. The body drops backward into brush, branches snapping softly under weight. Still no alarm. The Germans will later struggle to understand this. Their training assumes resistance attacks involve chaos, explosions, ambushes, crowds. What happens instead is absence. Officers fail to return. Curfews are missed. Morning roll calls come up short. By the later hours of the night, the risk becomes exponential. German command structures operate on routine. When officers do not report, someone eventually checks. Patrols are sent. Roads are monitored. Dogs may be deployed by dawn. The final actions must be executed before that shift occurs. One last officer is approached near the edge of a clearing. The terrain is more open. Mist hangs low. Visibility improves slightly. This is the most dangerous moment of the operation. The distance is closed deliberately. No rushing. The pistol is angled to avoid silhouette against the lighter background. The shot is taken from closer than before. The body falls forward, face down into wet grass. Breath escapes once. Then nothing. This is the limit. They do not attempt another approach. Weapons are concealed. Routes split. No one returns the same way they arrived. If stopped, they are just girls walking home in occupied territory. Nothing more. By sunrise, German units begin to react. Messengers are sent. Barracks are searched. Names are called. Reports are filed. Maps are checked. No single site explains the losses. No witnesses come forward. No gunfire was reported during the night. What has occurred does not fit German expectations of resistance warfare. And that confusion, more than the bullets themselves, magnifies the impact. The German response is swift, but unfocused. Checkpoints are increased. Patrols double. Civilians are questioned. Posters appear warning of death for anyone aiding the resistance. Yet the investigation stalls almost immediately. There is no single crime scene. No pattern that fits existing intelligence models. The officers are recorded as missing, then later confirmed dead. The exact number varies across reports. Some incidents are never formally linked. What is clear is that multiple German personnel are eliminated within a narrow time window without triggering an alert. For the resistance, the effect is immediate. German officers alter routines. Night walks stop. Escorts become standard. Casual interactions with civilians decrease. Commanders begin to suspect local collaboration on a scale they had not anticipated. But suspicion is not evidence. Freddie Oversteegen survives the war. So does Truus. They never speak publicly about specific killings during the occupation. Secrecy is survival, even after liberation. When questions come later, they describe the work without detail. No numbers. No bravado. Hannie Schaft is not as fortunate. In March 1945, she is captured at a checkpoint while carrying resistance materials. Identified by her red hair and known to the Gestapo as the girl with the red hair, she is executed just weeks before the Netherlands is liberated. After the war, recognition comes slowly. For decades, the role of young women in armed resistance is minimized. Stories focus on male fighters, sabotage, and battlefield heroics. The quiet killings, carried out by teenagers using deception rather than force, sit uncomfortably in post-war narratives. Eventually, that changes. Freddie Oversteegen is awarded the Mobilicity Oorlogskruis decades later. Public acknowledgement follows. Not for a single night, but for sustained high-risk service in occupied territory. By then, the full scope of what they did is no longer sensational. It is historical, and it forces a reassessment of how resistance actually functioned under occupation. This story does not belong to the mythology of war. There is no battlefield charge. No triumphant photograph. No clean moral framing. What happened in the forests of occupied Netherlands was not heroic in the cinematic sense. It was necessary, calculated, and psychologically brutal. Teenage girls learned to weaponize invisibility because the occupier refused to see them as a threat. That blindness cost lives. The German officers who disappeared that night never faced an enemy formation. They faced proximity, trust. A system that assumed violence always announced itself loudly. The resistance proved otherwise. In wars of occupation, power does not always collapse under force. Sometimes it erodes quietly, step by step, when those deemed harmless refuse to remain so. And that truth, more than any statistic, explains why empires fear resistance they cannot profile. This story does not belong to the mythology of war. There is no battlefield charge, no victory parade, no clear moment where history pauses to applaud. What happened in the forests of the occupied Netherlands was quiet, intimate, and irreversible. Teenage girls learned to kill not because they wanted to, but because occupation left no space for innocence. They understood something their enemy did not. That power depends on assumptions. And the most dangerous assumption of all is believing you are safe. German officers expected resistance to look like men with guns and bombs. They never prepared for smiles, conversation, and a short walk into the trees. That miscalculation was fatal. The legacy of Freddie Oversteegen and those like her is not measured in numbers alone. It is measured in the collapse of certainty, in the realization that domination fails the moment the occupied refuse to behave as expected. In that sense, the most powerful weapon that night was not the pistol. It was invisibility, turned deliberately into force.